I was working the evening shift at the hospice house in my hometown. I was getting a report from the nurse. All of a sudden, I had this idea that I should bake some cookies. Not a thought that was mine. Would never think that we should bake some cookies. But here it was, very loudly, you should bake some cookies. The nurse that I was getting a report from, she was definitely the person that should have had this thought. When I told her, she said, yes, and we just got all of those cookies donated. I had completely forgotten about. We had boxes, dozens and dozens of chocolate chip, white chocolate chip macadamia nut, uh, raisin, snickerdoodle, sugar. We had all the cookies. So I finished up report, went and checked on my patients. Everybody was good. I had one person who was actively dying. So I spent a little bit more time making sure that the family had everything that they needed before I got out of there and went to warm up the oven so that I could commence to bake some cookies. So I baked 1 dozen, and then I had another thought that was not mine. Why would you just bake 1 dozen when there is a big, beautiful glass cookie jar just sitting there on the counter? Like, you should fill it up. And so I said, okay, I guess we're going to fill up the cookie jar then and put in another couple dozen cookies. As I was pulling those out, there was a window, and I turned and I can see through the window, I can see this van, and there are all of these children that are filing out of that van and walking towards the house. As they entered the hospice house, I became aware that this was the family, the grandchildren of my resident who was actively dying. Then I knew that I was being used. I always knew I was good at what I did. I was proud of that fact. I was proud that residents, no matter where I was, always knew that I was someone that they could depend on. I was proud that people trusted me. They trusted me in their most vulnerable states. And I would come through for them. At that point in my life, I didn't have a whole lot to be proud of. This was the thing. At that moment is when I really understood that God, the divine, universal intelligence, I don't care what you want to call it, it wanted to use me and my gifts to help bring peace to other people. The children had settled in the house, and the adults that had brought them in had talked with the adults that were there, and everybody had kind of settled. Some of the adults came out and said, would you like some help? And I said, sure. They had their kids behind them, and they baked so many cookies. But it was more than that. It became the warmth in the house, the smell. It was inviting. It was peaceful when he died. And while he died, his family was there supporting him and supporting each other. And I got to be a small part of creating peace in that environment. That is what I love about what I do. That is what I love about end of life care, period. I experienced it as a hospice nurse, and I experience it now as a death doula. Every time I get the chance, people say, how can you do what you do? It would be so hard. It's too emotional. You don't understand how soul filling it is to help create an environment of peace at a time that's so important, at a time where people are so vulnerable, at a time where people are so raw with grief. I get to be a little part of bringing them peace. I love what I do. I'll always do it to some capacity. I will never, ever stop as long as I have anything to say about it. The one thing that you can do to actively create an environment of peace is to plan. Make a plan. You can start today. If you don't know where to start, I have a guide for you. Go to my link tree, download my sunset planning checklist. Start your planning today.